This is again continuing my run as I count down to 1,000. Believe it or not, I'm kind of some of my favorite guests, and some people have made a good impact. I can think of someone more fun to continue that little role with than the one and only Betsy Ross. How you doing?
Been busy. How about you?
Yeah, I've been busy too. I've been doing lots of firsts in the last year. How about you?
I worked a lot over the holidays, so it's kind of all crammed into one, and I think I'm still recovering. It's like I'm
I did.
already tired, and 2023 just started.
I know the feeling. So I have a side gig. I work at an arena for like hockey and stuff like that. So
Cool.
the biggest like party stuff was right after Christmas. So I basically worked the entire holiday, right? So this week I've been off, but I've been doing other things I've been behind on, and that's
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
we have similar lifestyles that way. Although I think it's pretty cool. You got a farm.
Uh, yes, that is exhausting. Kids are exhausting. Work is exhausting. Writing exhausting. Marketing is exhausting. Life is exhausting.
It can,
So it
yeah.
just keeps going.
It
Real
always
story.
does. So this is one of the reasons I invited you back. So when I get to episode 1,000, I'm taking my show on the road, legitimately.
Nice.
I'm becoming a rock star by accident there, Betsy. I don't know how that happened, but it might have. So I was wondering if am I cool enough to come visit your farm and interview you in person?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
my family would love to show you around. So
yeah. Probably, and yeah, maybe you can put me to work for a day or two to drive me crazy and
we
stuff
can
like that.
we can show you the ropes,
Yes.
put you to
Yeah.
work.
I actually, so I had a girlfriend who was a barrel racer. So the farm she was doing that stuff in, it was a horse farm. Farming's honest work. I really actually like. There's something relax, and I'm not saying it's not hard, but there's something very rewarding doing that
I know
kind
what
of
you mean.
work. Yeah, it's not. I do what I do here. Like I do video stuff. And it's creative and it's fun and it's wondrous and it's what I'm supposed to do, kind of that kind of sort of. But there is something nice about and this is going to sound really strange to anyone that's never done this. It's simply lifting hay and putting it in a pile. Like it's something really simple, but it's
Mhm.
And I'm not saying everything you do is that simple because Lord knows a farm is a business in of itself, right? And
Very true.
yeah, but there is a lot of basic stuff that has to be done every day, and there's something in. Enjoyable might be too strong, but there's something comforting about it, oddly enough. Is that fair?
I agree. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely.
Yeah.
I think my husband would even agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, and the buddy that worked that would the farm, he was a cop in Chicago, and he knew that was kind of like his post cop life was that. So it's like, yeah, like I can see why I see why people like that. Although sometimes I think the government's against you guys. But sometimes I think that's you're like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I don't understand why you feed everybody. It's like why does that like it's a strange world, but it is what it is. And um, do you still do like a day job at this point on top of the
Mhm.
farm?
Oh yeah,
Oh
oh yeah.
geez,
I'm still a lab
geez.
tech. That's where I spent most of my time because he wants to work during the holidays. Because I work in a hospital, and hospitals don't close, so I worked all the holidays, and then
What do you
some.
do at you don't mind my asking? What do you do at the hospital?
I'm a lab tech.
Lab tech. So like
I run all
you
the tests. Anytime you get blood drawn, I would run the tests.
oh, okay. Oh man, you
Mhm.
never stop then.
It can get pretty hectic, especially with COVID supposedly still going on. It's everyone goes to the hospital, so everything has to get tested. So
And you're
it's
like,
it's busy.
yay, yay, drink, yay, drink.
Yay!
It's like, yeah.
Just to come home to feed and water cows and feed three kids and
I
try to clean a house.
I somehow feel that part is actually kind of rewarding. I think honestly, I'm not saying there aren't interesting days. I'm sure there are, but if you're just testing for the same stuff over and over again, right?
For the most part. I'm
Yeah.
more of a generalist, so I get to bounce in some places because I also work 16-hour shifts. So they'll put me in one department first half of the day and then go to a different department the second half of the day. But I'm also a lead. So if bodies need checked out of the morgue, that's me. I'm running down to the morgue. And if there's an issue in phlebotomy, I'll run over to phlebotomy and help them. So I'm all over the place. So it does stay interesting in that way for me. Now, some of the other techs who do stay in one department, then yeah, I can see it getting monotonous. But for me, I mean, I
No,
like to
wow.
multitask anyway,
So your management there too? Oh wow.
basically. I mean, I'm not a supervisor. I'm below a supervisor. I'm
You're a
technically
lead
lead
hand kind of.
or
You're a lead
charge,
hand. You're a lead hand kind of
basically.
deal.
Yeah, because I'm
Uh,
basically the lead on weekends, and so I'm basically the supervisor.
I
When
could
they
see
wanna
you baby.
complain, "May I speak to the supervisor?" That's me. I'm not a supervisor, but I'm the lead. So, yay!
You deserve a raise.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Tell
you
them
no,
that.
no. I would, but have you told them that? Because
Not yet.
you should. No, you should. Like it sounds to me, it's like seriously, like you bust your ass, right?
Well, it's kind of a catch-22. I don't know what it is in other places, but in America, it is we can't keep jobs, and we have such high turnover, so we have very bad shortage, which is, again, everyone's constantly
Every,
working
every,
during
every,
the holidays.
well, it's. But this is part why I say you should ask for a raise because no, I'm serious. This is the thing. Okay, so the one thing the pandemic's kind of taught everybody is your time's valuable, right?
Yeah.
That's fair. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah.
So it okay. So me, I'm doing stuff. I get paid more about what I want to pay. Now I can be generous to some people, but one of the biggest things I've learned in this life is people appreciate what they put into you. And the more they put into you, think about it like, okay, think about it like this. Your job's way more complicated, but let's look at a fast food worker. Okay. Look at a fast food worker. They do it a lot. Like in the time to do it, it's actually impressive. But
Yeah.
nobody thinks about it in those terms because of how they're paid.
Yeah.
If they were making $30 an hour, you would be looking at them with a little more respect. Why? Because at $30 an hour, the job will be deemed a certain degree of importance. Now, you do a much more important job. First off. Second, right? I think a lot of people would say like to keep your head on your shoulders in a hospital. Never mind your farm and everything else you do, but to keep your head on your shoulder right in your hospital where life and death is a matter of minutes. That takes a certain kind of character and toughness, and you've hung in there where others have turned over. So just I hope you feel like I'm building you up because I am. You're right. You're a tough woman, and in the best ways. Hey, author goddess. See, live stream. It's cool. So hey, author goddess. But I mean, that's the thing. You're a tough woman, and your day job is not an easy one, and you do a lot of responsibility. And the truth of the matter is, they need you.
Yeah.
Right. The truth is, and let's be honest, you have a little leverage. And I know this might sound, but here's the thing. You deserve it, right?
To some degree. Because, well, we're in a I don't know what the economy's doing, honestly. I mean, gas
It's
prices technically have gone back
it,
down, but it's uh,
the economy, if we're being honest, is got we haven't hit bottom yet. I do think we hit bottom this year, but we haven't hit bottom yet, right? So I think there's going to be, and this is there. Okay, from a investment, trying to be, trying to be. I just author goddess. I just try to keep it real, right? I try to keep it real. So but the thing is, in your position, and you're in a good position, even regardless of what the economy, your job's bulletproof, almost bulletproof, right? It doesn't matter what the economy says or is or does. You're needed. Ergo, and again, this might sound a little ruthless, but well, it's reality. Look, you work your ass off. You would rather spend that 16 hours elsewhere, maybe writing more books, maybe, hanging out with your husband a little bit more, a date, a little bit more romance, and then your life, right? Hanging out with your kids and trying to keep up with them, and probably some of them. Every I wouldn't say it needs to be Machiavellian. You have to learn how to be ruthless, at least when it comes to your time and your money. You have to. It's an important part of, author, to answer your question, it's an important thing. You're worth something. It doesn't matter what your job is, you're worth something. I use fast food. I mean, seriously, the reality of the situation is, even a fast food job, everybody's underpaid. Everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, right? So it's realizing that and going, okay, what can I get in a time like this? It's not about bad economy. Say the hospital did get rid of you, hypothetically speaking, okay? You could get into another hospital. I've seen the signing bonuses of some of these hospitals, right?
Very true.
Right. So it's not like you don't really have much to lose. If you went to them and said, hey, listen, and actually, heck, this is what you should do. Have a conversation with your husband. Bring your husband into this, because your husband will think you're worth the world and you should listen to him. And then he'll go, and then, right. Then you go, honey, I'm thinking about asking for a raise. How much should I ask for? And you know what? And right. And he'll give you a number. Right. And then what you should do is you should take that number and add 10% to that number and ask for that. And see, and work your way down to that number.
Sounds like something my husband would say anyway.
Yeah, and your husband's right. Your husband's right. Listen, you do what you want. You're a grown ass woman, and you don't need me to tell you what to do. But the thing is, I think in terms of, look, we've had this talk every time you come on the show. You are an incredibly skilled woman. You are. So don't worry about. You shouldn't worry about your worth. You're priceless. So go get what you think you're honestly worth. And if you have doubts, if you're like, well, I don't know what I'm worth, ask someone who cares about you and let them tell you what they're worth. And have them help you negotiate.
My husband loves to negotiate. That's why he runs the farm side of the business.
Yeah. So get him to go. He would love that. I'm straight up telling you, he would love that. Get him to negotiate for you. He probably would get you a better deal.
He would.
Yeah. So
he would.
If he listens to this, well, it's not just it's not just creators, author, goddess. It's everybody, right? Everybody's worth more than everybody's valuable. There are just so many skills out there. Look, I make commercials. That sounds really annoying, but in bad economies, commercials are needed more, not less. Because when you do have money, guess what? It's the people that are squeaking the wheel that get the oil. That's right. Right? Yeah. You can save the minds and hearts of people, but it's not that. You make people connect. You make people feel. Right? It's about what you feel. Right? So all of which to say, Miss Betsy, is you work way too hard and you make probably too little. Don't settle. Don't settle. You're worth more than that.
Well, I do love what I do. I do have a lot going on. So I'm definitely buying time for now.
Well, it's your, again, you do what you want. Yeah, I do. Let me tell you a story. I'll tell you a fun story. I had the opportunity to work for an author I grew up reading and I loved it. But it's also the only job I've ever had where I ended up paying for it because he was behind on paying me. I'm not going to name names because there's really no point. I didn't learn this lesson until much later in that this people put we hate saying this like this because it sounds really corny, but the way the world seems to work in terms of pay scale, the more you're paid, the more valuable you are. Just the way it is. I don't know. I don't really know what else. But the beautiful thing about this game is the beautiful thing about this game. And then I promise I'll leave you alone with this. I promise you. Okay. I promise. The beautiful thing about this game is you have the ability to dictate what that worth is to some degree. Obviously, there's downward pressures on the market too, demand. But again, your day job, that you don't have that problem exactly, right? You don't really, no, you don't have that problem. So you, again, if you're working toward a very specific goal, and the more money you make now, the quicker you get to your real goals. And I can't think of too many people that deserve to enjoy what they've worked for more than you. You're not used to this.
Say all that.
You're not
I'm
used
processing.
to that. Yeah, you're not used to somebody building you up like this.
No, just want to talk to you.
Yeah, but that's why you like them. That's part of the reason you like it. Listen. All this just comes from my own lessons, right? If I can save you time, energy, and heartbreak, I will, right? Right. And again, this is something that didn't come easy. This is something I've learned over time. You know, right? I've learned over time. But it sounds to me, just based on what little you've just told me, you bust your ass. You do. You love it, or you wouldn't be doing it. You enjoy the challenges in your life to some degree. And that's part of the fun for you. But at the same time, right, you got to look at the long game. 5 years from now, do you want to still be doing this? 10 years from now, do you still want to be doing this? Just as you're doing it. And if the answer is no, which at some point, right? Yeah. Yeah. Freelancing has taught me the value of negotiation. That's all I'm saying. Okay. And I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave it at that. I promise. I absolutely promise. Right. But I just want to make that very clear to you. And this, anyone listening or watching this, you're worth something. And even doesn't matter what the economic times are, you never should stop going for what you're worth. It's possible to make a fortune in hard times. It really is. And you don't have to necessarily cheat at anybody to do it.
Right.
But you have to have faith in yourself.
That kind of got shaken up a lot because there was a time where I actually had gotten fired from a job as a lab tech because I stood up for patient care and I didn't agree with what was going on and how they were handling certain tests. And so once I basically started mentioning a bunch of things, they fired me by text. So it was kind of harsh, but it did teach me that, maybe I care too much. Maybe I shouldn't be in this field because let's face it, hospitals are a business. Even though they are good, it's a business. And I have a business degree now. So it's like I understand more than I really care to about hospitals because it's heartbreaking.
And if you apply it to the whole medical industry, hospitals, the microcosm of the whole medical industry, right? Right. And if you really think about that, it's tragic. And you look at the events of the last few years and you put that in perspective, it makes you mad.
Yes, and I'm not saying hospitals are bad, don't ever go
No,
to
no,
them
no,
or
no,
anything
no,
like
no,
that.
no,
I
no,
don't
no,
mean
no.
that at all, but I have
No,
seen where doctors will just, like, order tests that aren't needed, and it's like, "Okay, we're going." Some of them I have control where I can cancel them, but very
no,
rarely.
well, okay. I'm just gonna put it like this because you can't comment about what I'm about to say. You're not going to be able to, and I'm going to say that up front. It's always been weird to me that the medical industry is primarily the decisions in the medical industry are primarily done by insurance companies and big business, right? And again, this has nothing to do with the hospitals in terms of the people, staff, technology, and equipment, and any of that stuff. A lot of that's good, right? Again, it's not a perfect system, but it's a really good system, right? But the real problem, and again, you can't comment. I don't want you to comment on this because if you do, you'll be in trouble. But I can because I'm outside the industry, and that's this. If people understood the role insurance and these businesses make in everything, not just hospitals, but in medicine, you would be a lot more leery about what's being offered into the world today. You'd be a lot more leery, and rightfully so. And you wouldn't be blaming the hospitals or the staff or the doctors or the nurses or any of the EMTs or any of those people because they're not the problem, right? But that's the reality. Um, the only thing I'm going to say off the guard is they're a good business, but for all the wrong reasons. And that's all I'm going to say. She can't comment, so. Right. Well, you can't. Like I'm saying this for your. I'm saying this for your own good, right? These are my opinions, and I can say what I want because I'm not part of it. You don't have that luxury. That part is where you have to be good, right? Unfortunately,
Yeah.
where yeah, you're like, yeah, I know, and I hate you a little bit right now. But again,
Yes.
it took me a long time to understand that too, because again, so my dad's a naturopath, so he's from the other end of the spectrum, right? Right. So I've seen the industry from that perspective growing up, and I've seen how they both intertwine, and it's really, um, like I said, we can't comment anymore, author guys. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to something else. That way she doesn't get in trouble. But but the thing is, right? That doesn't change the fact that again, it's good to care. It's good to have the thing. But the thing is, here can I put the firing as a kind of a mixed blessing for you? Just something to consider.
It was.
Yeah, it was a mixed blessing. You probably are working with better people now.
More so,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Having some so maybe what you should be looking at. I mean, maybe you did care too much. I don't know. I can't. I my gut says you're probably a little right on that one, but that's okay, right? But I will. But maybe more than I would rather that than a doctor that doesn't care. That personally, or a technician that doesn't care, or a nurse that doesn't care. They're the worst, literally. I would rather have someone that cares too much than not at all. But at the same time, when you do take a stand, something I've learned in this life, you filter out things. And sometimes, and more often than not, you get better things eventually.
Eventually. True. I do
Yeah.
agree. I've always had that issue though, for me personally, is that ethical issue. That's one reason I just prefer to be an introvert because I don't understand people. There's such negative and I'm trying to, stand up for what I believe in, but when I do, it's somehow I get hurt or whatever.
Because not many people stand up for what they believe in.
True.
That's the thing is the moment you stand up. See, I think I figured something out about you. I'm not right. Can you make me a promise? Can you make me an
Uh-oh.
absolute promise? This is the promise. If I piss you off in any way, shape, or form, let me know in the beginning.
Mm,
Make I think I scored a hit. I think I scored a hit on that. Here because you're the kind of person that and I understand this, when something really, really, really tired people with what they love, I'm not sure that's quite right there, author goddess. I think it's more like this. You see something that doesn't sit right with you. You sit on it, you sit on it, you sit on it, and then one day you say to yourself, I can't take this anymore. And then you let it out. And no matter how much you try to quiet that, you can't.
With some things.
Yeah.
Over time, I've gotten more blunt, or I'll just act right away instead. But I mean, is a time and place, especially being in a lead type position now. And as far as a hospital setting, it's I try to control it a little more. I
Well,
try to be more diplomatic about it, but I'd rather not be diplomatic.
yeah.
But I mean, I try to focus on the good of what I can do, what is within my power, what am I able to do. Stand up for when I can, but I mean, it's rough trying to find that boundary, that middle line of everything, whether it's good, evil, whether it's bad, good, ethical reasons, or whatever it is. It's very hard to just stay in the middle.
You can't stay in the middle. You can't. You can't. You have to.
Not always.
Yeah, right. But so this is what I try to do. This is just, again, I'm throwing a thought out there. You can agree with me or disagree with me. I had an epiphany. I think we talked about this the last time you were on the show a little bit. But I've added 2 rules to success since the pandemic. Would you like to hear them?
Of course.
Rule 9, detach from all outcomes. Okay. Here's the thing. This is something I realized about human beings in general. We are all guilty of this. And I think, but understanding this makes it a little better. We all have an idea on how we think the world's supposed to work. Right? You're with me so far, right? Now, if I mention a word, an idea, right? I don't want to be controversial today, so I'm not going to. I'm going to pick. I'm just going to give a name. I'm not going to say whether you like or hate, but let's say the example is Donald Trump. I'm not going to go into comments about his politics or anything like that, but it's a polarizing name, because what that is you have people have a different idea of what that man is. Some people think he's a monster and a narcissist and a lying sack of shit. Other people think he's what America needs. Other people think that okay, and again, but what is the idea that both of them are looking at? They're looking at as a person and seeing a different idea. Now, whether that's true or not, whether he is or isn't, no one actually truly knows for sure. But once we buy the idea, Trump is the worst thing since Hitler, Trump is the best president ever. And by the way, again, not saying either. That's not the point here. The point is you're creating a name and an identity to an idea. Now, if you buy into an idea and I go to you, let's say you bought into the idea that Trump's the worst monster on the planet. And I go, well, actually, he's done some good. Well, now that contradicts with your idea, right? That Trump's a bad person, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily. Now, if you can detach from the idea that Trump is the good or a bad person, right? And you can actually look at it without the emotion of that investment of that idea, we can have a conversation. But as long as you're tied the more you're tied to an idea of how the world works, the more an attack on that idea is an attack on the person. So going to what you do when you take a stand, on with people, when you take a stand with what you believe in and what your ideas are, and you should, this is where it gets tricky, when you should understand that other people have their own ideas, right? Whether you agree with them or not, they have their own ideas. But the second part is, it doesn't mean your ideas are invalid. Quite the contrary. You're taking a stand where other people wouldn't. right? And that creates a standard. And that's something that not everybody has.
I
Does that
agree.
make sense? Does
Oh,
that
it does.
make sense?
Oh, yes.
Right?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So, but to truly have a dialogue of ideas, we have to detach from the outcomes we believe the ideas we have are going to be. Right? We have to be able to do that. If we can do that, we can listen to each other. We still might not agree at the end of the day, but we don't have to. The important thing is I respect you for what you believe in, and you respect me for what I believe in. Even if we disagree, I'll still have a beer with you, or a coffee, or a tea, or whatever you like, right? Right. But the thing is, most people don't know how to detach from their own ideas. They don't have that self-awareness to do that.
I agree. I don't know what else to say. It's like
Yeah.
you said it all. So
Well, that's the
Okay.
ninth rule. But it's a thought for you about why people. This is why people don't take stands, because we don't have. There's not a universal consensus anymore of what is right and wrong, for good or ill. So what tends to happen, right? What tends to happen is then people tend to go more into a more tribalistic approach. If there's not a consensus, at the very least, maybe we're to go to where the majority is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's right either. It just means everybody thinks that way right now. But that can change. And that's why it's important to stand for something. Because when you stand for something, you can actually stand put. Everything else is a tide, a wave. But you actually have your own ground to stand on.
Perfectly said.
You're
I don't know what else to say. Yes.
but does that ring true? Does that ring true with your struggles? I mean, that's what I'm asking.
I guess so. I mean, for the most part. Now, as
Yeah.
far as me working, yes, I would
Yeah.
definitely agree. And I try to remind myself that, people come back from different cultures, beliefs, everything. So,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That is a very complicated conversation, Author Gardenus. That's a very complicated thing. Yes. Yes, it is. Yes. Yes, it definitely is. That's not where we're going to go today, I don't think. With you coming back on my show, Author Godness, we can have that conversation, right? But that's another conversation for another day. But again, talking about you, talking about where you've been and where you're going, right? You should have that. It's the thing I admire about you the most is that you are willing to take a stand.
I fight myself on that every day.
It's just so when you take a stand.
Well, it's part of. I think I've made it worse since starting the fight series because the more I write, the more I understand psychology and just really analyzing like people watching and myself, seeing it in myself. It's like it scares me how much I'm starting to understand and I mean, always been open-minded, but open-minded in the sense of just like why people do what they do, why they believe what they believe, and just things like that. But the more I have been writing Fight, now that I'm trying to get Fight 4 published this year. And just the more I put into the series and trying to promote it and trying to defend it from those who don't agree with what the Fight series or what Fight missioners are doing or what they talk about, it creates a lot of dilemmas within myself where I'm just questioning everything, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe in, but then it's like, am I just the asshole? And but then again, it's like, but I'm deflecting, but I'm reacting to my own emotions 'cause I'm an angry person, but it won't always come out as anger, and sometimes it will when I mean well. So it's like, again, there's a lot of internal fights. It's those internal demons that people are always talking about. Because I'm very self-aware, but to be positive all the time is so exhausting. And
You don't
then when
need
I try to
you don't need to be
go ahead.
positive all the time.
Well,
Well,
when I promote fight though, it's continuing the fight of everyday life.
yeah.
And when you are all of a sudden expressing depression and PTSD, just like today, someone's like, "Well, didn't you write a book? Why are you feeling down? Why are you feeling like you're in a funk?" Well, just because I wrote about it doesn't mean I don't fight it every day. I have my own fights every day. And it
Sure.
gets very challenging when you're trying to be positive and you're trying to be there for other people. Because when people talk about depression, PTSD, suicide thoughts, that is a very, very fine line of where they really are. I believe there's stages. Like stages as far as now, I am not a psychologist. I don't know anything. Please don't come at me with anything about any of that. Anybody, please. But I believe personally that there are just different stages. I've had suicide thoughts. I've been depression. I've had, my phases of PTSDs where it's just I literally cannot be in the room with anybody, not even my own husband, not my children. I barely trust myself. So I believe there are just different stages, different levels, phases, whatever you want to call them, of any of those negative type states of mind, really. It's states of
Mhm.
mind. You're conflicting the emotions versus what your mind is wanting to do, whether it's physically finding that outlet. It's why people drink. It's why I like to go run. But some people do drugs. Some people just have different outlets. And
Mhm.
trying to be positive and choosing that right outlet always isn't as easy as what people say. And it gets
No.
very complicated when you're trying to bring that to light, which one reason why I've had negative comments about the fight series, especially in the beginning. You talk about veterans, military, the ones, the big badass that Hollywood, likes to put guns in IEDs and, shooting terrorists in the face kind of thing. Everyone just, they highlight that part, and that's great. But what happens when they come home? And then all of a sudden you just expect them to just go home, have a day job, like it's no day, no big deal. And that's really not the case. And then, of course, they have to look at their own reflection every single day. That is not easy. And that is the topic that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And that's what the fight kind of brings to light. It's not a help book. It's not a self help book. It's not at all, unfortunately. There's no true answers to anything unless you're trying to, I guess, journey your own why you feel the way you do. Why did you join the military and then you came home and all of a sudden you don't know who you are? Why are you having these thoughts where you just, your own loved ones, your own family, your own kids, you just all of a sudden are distant. It's like you love them, but I mean, you wouldn't want anything bad happen to them, but all of a sudden you don't want to be around them. And it's very complicated to start talking about that because it's a very
And
negative
well, it's also
topic.
also that's not as easy as it sounds either, author guys. Because here's the real issue, and something she's mentioned. She's said, but not without saying. She doesn't. Anyone that serves has seen combat, has seen the other parts of the world, and done things for their country. They don't have a normal life anymore. Like, what is a norm? Like, even a therapist. There's no context for a therapist. I have never really talked too much about her military experiences. You can read some of them in her books. You can read about some of the thoughts there, right? And but even a therapist, like that is like that connection, that honest connection for someone that they can relate to. That like a typical therapist can't do that as easily. It can be done. I'm not saying it's impossible. Um, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right? Because again, because even going and this is the thing, even going to a therapist with a military, unless that someone has an idea of what they've been, the combat they've seen, or the things they've experienced. This is even true with people that, again, hospitals. You can talk about hospitals, fire departments, police departments. Same thing. They see and experience things that a lot of us would consider beyond normal. So how could I or anybody else that even in a therapist chair go, I can relate to you? No, we can't. Right? That's the problem. Right? That's the problem with the therapy option. It's not, I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but it would have to be very specialized because it's not they don't have a normal experience, right? And that's the thing, like, what is normal? And after you experience that kind of life, like, you're never going to be normal again. Like, even if you do live a normal, quote unquote, a normal life, you've seen extraordinary things, and that changes you. It just does.
It does.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of, again, a lot of gray area, because it's not to say that not, veterans just can't transition
No,
back home. And no, there's not that at all. I know very successful veterans,
sure,
they
absolutely.
served in the military and they are doing great as a CEO
Yeah.
of their own business. They're succeeding. They are just loving life.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying that all veterans have trouble, but Fight mainly focuses on those who fight the system. They don't like the system, don't trust the system. They want to feel normal, but they don't know how to be normal. They hate that word. I get the
Yeah.
feel that they just hate that word. Don't I am not normal. Quit saying I'm normal. Quit saying I'm back home. I'm not over there. I'd rather be over there.
It-
There's a lot of turmoil within that type of discussion.
yeah, exactly. Like I said, this is why I say it like that. Like, again, there are people that come back from those experiences and they crush it. But even but there are again, but everybody's different.
Mhm.
Everybody's different, and everybody, again,
Absolutely.
the experiences we go through, right? I could go through the exact same experiences you did. I might be weeping like a baby. I'm being like again. I'm not pretending to be. I'm not pretending that I'm the toughest guy in the world. I'm not, right? I don't have. Again, I don't have. Then again, I might be like one of those real hard assholes. It's like, hey, I'm the tough. Like right. I could be that guy, and he'd want to punch me in the face, and rightfully so. And all right, I mean that's right. That's the. But that's the thing. We all experience things differently, and and that's what makes the human condition so fascinating, right? Is right. That's what makes it fascinating. Is we can have the exact same experience and like have a very different outlook based on those exact same experiences, right? Even though we can relate, we don't see it the same, and that's so interesting. And I think that's great. But it also means that for everyone that comes out like, hey, I'm the king of the world, there's gonna be another person's like, what the fuck did I just go through? Right?
Very true.
Right.
That's very true. And that's where it gets complicated, where they're saying, well, just go to the VA. Well, the VA doesn't work with a lot of people. I have nerve damage, but the VA says I'm not injured. Okay, 20, in pain 24/7, no big deal. Can't lift anything, can't hold my children, but okay, thank you for your help and, consideration. But, and then of course, when I got out, I tried to speak to a counselor and they said that I wasn't medically discharged and I could not speak to anyone unless I was willing to kill myself right then and there. And at that time, I was more angry at the VA than I was, wanting to actually kill myself. I was just really in a dark place and I really needed to talk to someone. And I really didn't have a home. So I was technically homeless, but not. And because I was just bouncing from couch to couch. And so I didn't really have a lot, but I was going to school. I jumped into school to be a lab tech, and it was just very hard. I was going through a divorce. It was a very troubling divorce. So it was very traumatizing just to get out of the military just because of my experiences. But people were like, oh, you're a veteran. You get everything for free. You must have everything good. And it's like, what? No, the VA has yet to help me at all, other than sort of kind of pay a little bit of me to go to school. It's actually not a lot. So it wasn't like, I just had it made. It was very rough. It was a very, very dark time. But then I started hearing that some of my friends that I served with were still committing suicide. I was having suicide thoughts. It was just just a dark time.
Yeah.
And then that's when Fight kind of came out because I was like, no one's talking about why people are killing themselves. And then all of a sudden, I gave myself a purpose out of, I didn't think of it that way. But now looking back, it's like out of thin air, I just like, you're going to do this. And because it needs to be said, and someone needs to say something. All of a sudden, suicide thoughts kind of went away. I just started, I mean, life still sucked, but it wasn't like, I was willing to kill myself or just stand out in front of a bus or whatever. It was like, no, we're going to write this because it needs to be said. And here I am. And now I have kids and a farm. And no, just,
And it worked, and you went and you survived that dark time, and you came through on the other
yeah.
side, and it worked out. And that's honestly, I'm sorry you went through the dark time you went through, right? Didn't have to be as dark as it was. I think that's the real tragedy of that. If someone maybe had been there for you at the beginning, it maybe would have been a little easier, but it wasn't, and it didn't. But at the same time, right? You found something in yourself to keep you going, and that and that drive. I don't know. Okay, I'm not saying what they did was right, but here's a legitimate question for you. I think this is the first actual question I've had for you the entire time we've talked. Would you be as driven now if you hadn't gone through it?
I don't think so. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if anyone has read Fight, there are so many roller coaster of emotions that people don't understand how anyone could live through it. But some of those stories are not mine. But the majority of those emotions, one way or another, I wrote what I was feeling, what I was thinking. And it's one of the twisted, cynical reasons why I believe everything happens for a reason. And whether you believe in a God or not, whatever, it doesn't matter. I just personally believe everything does happen for a reason. And there have been some moments where I'll be just sitting there and it's like, you don't have to figure out why it ended the way it did. My military career, why I got injured, didn't get to deploy that. I got missed at one of my deployments and ended up having 7 of my people in my unit got ambushed and died. And then when I see their faces on the news one day, I was like, wow, that was my unit. I was supposed to see them. But they had kicked me out basically because of my injury. And it's so funny to think like, wow, I could have been over there. What if that one was me? But no, they kicked me out and I'm in school and now I'm jumping couch to couch. So it was kind of like I really had to sit with myself and go, you don't have to know the answers, but everything happens for a reason. And then when I started Fight, that's when I started reaching out to other veterans and being able to hear more stories from around the world. That's what's amazing. I had readers in India and the UK and Australia and, even veterans, military personnel from other countries that were able to connect. They may not understand the lingo Americans have, but it was amazing. And it just opened my eyes like, we're all not as different as people claim.
Okay.
And pain is pain. We all feel pain, maybe different severities, different levels of it. Like you said, we all have different reactions to that, those experiences and pain and sadness, whatever. But it's been amazing to those who have supported the Fight mission overall. Whether they may agree with some of the things or not, they were like, this actually really helped me, or, I know people who it has helped. And so it's given me a purpose. And I believe that's, I believe everything does happen for a reason.
I did too. Actually, I did too. So one of my favorite little motivational things that I use for myself, it's I don't know if you've ever listened to Jocko Willink. He's a Navy SEAL that has a podcast. He has a 2-minute motivation called Good. And the thing is, every time his staff go to him for bad news, he'd say good. So one day I wanted to say, okay, why do you always say good when bad shit happens? Right? because, and this is what he points out, is no matter how bad a situation can be, good always comes from it, right? And then he goes through this whole spiel. Didn't get the job you were going for? Well, good. You can go get another one. Didn't get that car you wanted? Oh, good. You can go get something else, right? If you didn't get promoted, good. You learned. Get your ass kicked? Awesome. You learned. You survived. You're still here. You're ready to kick some ass for more. There's a very, it's perspective, right? It's perspective. And we have a tendency in the worst moments, we are allowed to feel the worst, right? We are allowed to, right? But at some point, we have to move forward. And to move forward, we have to find, even in the worst moments, the good. Which is why I asked the question I asked you.
I like that. Good. I'm just gonna start saying that now.
Yeah.
Good.
No, it's a very,
that.
yeah, no, because now you don't flinch, right? I'm a freelancer. I've had incredible ups and downs. So I'll tell you what I did. I did 6 cool firsts this year. You want to hear what my 6 cool firsts are? I got my first published illustration. It's really cool, right? First published short story. First show I did for a company. First directing debut. First producing debut. Right? First, there was one more first. What was it? There's another one. First comics editing debut.
Nice.
1, 2, 3, 4. Now, those are the ups. I got my ass kicked so hard last year in some ways too. It was just like the ups and the downs are they come together. They don't come, like, very rarely do you get a nice thing that's just a nice thing. I've noticed that.
That's
right?
true.
You very rarely get that's just a nice thing. Like, why can't we have nice things? No, we do have nice things. We just have to pay for them. That's just the way it goes, right? I did 6 really, but the thing is, for all that bad,
and we have to appreciate them and just enjoy them.
yes, exactly. One of my roommates. That's Rich, ladies and gentlemen. Rich is a good dude. So but I say it's like, that's life in a good way, in the best of ways, is if you can look at the worst things in your life and find the good in them, you can move forward. And that is truly powerful. And that's when you find, instead of becoming dust under pressure, that's when you become a diamond.
I strongly agree.
Yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel right this minute?
I'm not sure. Because anytime I bring up my military experiences, it kind of like just kicks up the dust a little bit, and then it's like I gotta filter and go, "You're fine, you're fine."
Oh, no, it's cool. Like I said, so I hope you understand the way I'm going to put this. In one sense, I'm very glad I don't understand. In one sense, yeah. All right. On another hand, if I could, I'd give you a hug. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Because I don't pretend to fully understand your experiences, but I do understand you're in pain. And if I could do something about the pain, I would. That's how I'll put that.
And truthfully, that really matters. It counts.
Yeah.
And I think people do forget that part. It's
yeah. It's why I've talked to you like 3 times. I haven't asked a ton about your military service because I also just feel like I don't have a context to fully understand what you've been through. Do you know what I mean? right?
do.
I don't have it. And I've done a lot in my life. I've done a lot of crazy shit, but I'm not but the one thing I have not been is what you've done. I haven't done anything like that. So, I mean, and I don't want to be like I'm trying to glorify, because again, here's the last thing I will say about soldiers in general. I would say 90% for sure. Maybe it's a higher number, but I'll say 90%. Every person I've ever met in the military, reserves, Marines, Navy, it doesn't matter what the unit is, some of the best people I've ever met, they just want to serve. That's all, like, that's the majority. There's other reasons too, don't get me wrong. But by and large, I've never seen so many people trying to make a good difference in the world. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I can't speak to to everybody. I don't think it's ever. I would be naive to say that's absolutely every single person in there, because you got your bad apples in there too, like everybody, like everything else. But I remember I was in Los Angeles in the Greyhound station in Los Angeles, California. Now, the Los Angeles Greyhound is a shithole. I'm being very generous in saying that it's a shithole, right? And I remember I was like, what? Like, I ended up here out of my own morbid curiosity. I should have went to Denver. That was my mistake. That's another story for another day. I had the choice, and I thought LA would be the more glamorous option. I learned that lesson real quick. And but I remember like basically out of nowhere, there's this dude in the reserves, just super chill. Right. He looked out for me, and he didn't have to. And I've never forgotten that. Like, he was just a good dude, right? And that's it. There was nothing else to it. He just was, I'm doing my best I can to help out, and that's it. He was on his way home too. He was on his way to his next assignment. He just was like, yeah, man. And we just chilled for a little bit, and it was just like, I mean, what more can you want?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it's a good thing. Good people do stand up for other people. They stand up for what they think is right. They think, if you're a good person, they'll know,
exactly.
and they'll have your back.
Yeah.
And that's why the saying, "the good die young," hurts me so. It's because when I see the list of all the people I served with that passed away, they were young. They were in their early 20s. And then people are like,
Yeah.
why did they have to go? And I'm like, well, the good die young. They were good people. They stood up for what they believed in, and they sacrificed it all for it. And that's why.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think necessarily a lot of good people die young. I don't think every good
They
person
do.
dies
Not
young.
everybody. Not everybody.
Yeah.
But it is. But that saying just always hits me, especially from a military perspective, because there are a lot of veterans or military personnel. They do die young, but that's because they stood up for what they believe, and they wanted to serve. They wanted to go all the way. And so that saying has always hit me hard anytime someone would say, well, the good die young, or why did the good have to die young? Well, from my perspective, I see it from a military perspective, and it can be pretty heartbreaking. But at the same time, good people do stand up for the good.
Yeah. And what they do means something, because it's what they believed in.
Mm-hmm. But that's why it's like you got to fight even nowadays when I'm talking with people, because in fight, you'll see lists of in memory of the names that I had served with. Most of them had committed suicide, but they'll discuss, hey, so-and-so also committed suicide, or because my husband still gets phone calls like that from people in his unit that have committed suicide or have thought about it. And it's such a dark topic, but at the same time, it's something that probably needs to be spoken more of, just to, I don't want to say want to normalize it, but it's
it's part of the world. Like I'm reading this. My novel series for them being heroic. I I honestly think, like, I honestly, author goddess, the biggest word I dread in modern Western civilization is to be called a hero. And I hate it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I feel like it covers up the humanity of the people that are serving. Like, if you were talking strictly on a military level, that's what it covers up. It takes away their humanity. Hey, they're heroes. Because if I call you a hero, right, and I call you a hero, and I don't get to know you and talk to you, and I just put you in this box, you're a hero. It can be a box as much as it can be anything else. And I have a tendency to, um, how do I put this? I don't like that. I'd rather get to know the person because I think that's a much better homage to them than I could ever hope to. But the second thing I've also found is that we have a tendency in Western culture to eventually vilify our heroes.
I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, author goddess. Right? And the reality is sooner or later their humanity is going to show and then you turn them into villains. I hate that shit so much. It's like if someone calls me a hero, I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. No. All right, I don't want it. Right, you can have it. I don't want it. Right. It's. I'd rather be a good person that does good things, and every once in a while, I'm just braggadocious enough to say some of them here and there. Right. So I'm not into right. I'd rather be that than someone's hero. Right, and that's just
Same.
right. That's just me. But that right. So that's the thing. Like I hate that word too. I don't hate it for quite the same reasons you do, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't like that word either. It's just it's too simplistic, and I think that's the truth. It's just too simplistic.
Well, for me, it's more well my perspective when I hear people being called heroes. Not to say that some of them probably really aren't heroes in
Yeah.
some
Oh,
situations,
oh,
but from a
absolutely.
military perspective, for sure, it's I love the phrase. I'm pretty sure I got it from like NCIS or something, but someone had said, uh, "The real heroes never came home," and hearing that it
Mhm.
trumps all that anything hero. Anytime I hear hero, I'm like, no, the real heroes didn't come home. They didn't get to go home to their families. They didn't make it, and so it's I don't know. I just don't like that word, and especially, I mean, I'm not saying don't thank veterans, don't do any of that, even though it feels awkward. It feels very awkward when strangers come up to me and say, "Thank you for your service," and it's like, you don't know my service. You don't know what I did. I don't like it, and a lot of veterans I've heard, not saying they don't want to be thanked, but it just gets awkward because you don't know what went on, what happened, what was said, what they saw. You don't know any of that, so it gets very awkward very fast for some of us, especially when my husband and I are in the same room if we're at
You
a
want to
veterans
do? I'll
event
put that back
cheering
up
for
for you so
veterans.
you can read it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely one way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring one other thing up, but going back to something you mentioned earlier about people
Mhm.
that some people could die young. Um, I'm not talking about the good in them dying because there's not any real good in people dying young like that. But
I know
it
what you
always reminds me. It reminds me of the world that the world is unfair, and the flip side of the unfairness of the world. Here's the flip side. It opens the door that anybody can have a second chance at any moment, at any time. Right? I'm not trying to trivialize anybody that doesn't make it. That's not what I'm doing here. All I'm saying, pointing out is, all I'm pointing out to ladies and gentlemen is this: is the nature of the world. That means in one part, really good people that are really trying to make a difference sometimes don't come home. But on the flip side, that means that anybody has an opportunity tomorrow to become somebody different. And that's the trade. Unfortunately, I feel more often than not, that's the trade-off. I don't know if you agree with me on that or not, but
I understand it.
yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
life is unfair, and it's just something we just deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have time to like? By the way, I know you're so busy these days. Do you have any time to read at all?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
So you actually, one of my favorite books is Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. So what do you think about that one, Betsy? Do you think the author God is right? That isn't the hero that's the problem. It's the social pressure we put on them.
To an extent, I do agree. It's the same as Hollywood. We put so much pressure on them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You put like Hollywood stars, heroes.
Image versus reality.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Especially with all the Marvel videos coming out. You say hero. I mean, I feel like hero. They would give it all. Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Very true. That's where I think mental health gets questioned more so. People do forget people are people. We bleed.
Yeah.
We all bleed red, and then that's where people start differentiating themselves. Not just status levels, but, race, religion. I mean, it filters out. We're all human. We're all feeling pain. We're all facing life. We all think life's unfair.
Do you know? I know what I think the difference between intelligence and wisdom is.
Do tell.
Intelligence discerns difference. It's a useful tool. Intelligence discerns difference. Wisdom moves past it. What do you think?
It's definitely one perspective. I think I can agree mostly.
Yeah. I just that has always been like a smart person can always look at the differences in a situation and might see them quicker than somebody else. But a wise person then at that point takes that information and wisdom doesn't necessarily see similarity, but it moves past the differences and tries to see connection instead. Doesn't right? I think wisdom seeks connection, whereas intelligence just only goes for difference. I'm not sure it's quite the same thing, but generally I agree with you, Miss Author Guys. But I will say this. So the book I was referring to, that I was going to mention here before, is so Memory of Light by Robert Jordan is towards the end of the books. So the main character, he's like a messiah kind of character, and he's fighting this great evil, and he couldn't let go of the fact of all the people that died for him until one of his very best friends is killed. And she goes to him, we chose this. Let us go. And in the line, because basically what you said, it actually hits me in a different way now, and this is why I'm bringing this up, is he let these people go. He let them be heroes instead. I thought that was just the way you put that. I see that line very differently now. So, thank you for that.
Well, that's the good thing about meeting different people from anywhere. You can get different perspectives. You can get more insight. Because it is crazy. With that one line, there are probably many different perspectives to what people think that means.
Well, again, it's like I was telling us earlier, the nature of ideas and how we see ideas, right? I just think your idea is better. Right? In that case, and at least in that case, your idea is better. Yeah. Miss Betsy, I don't know if you're ever going to get to come back on here in this concept again. So I wanted to say this here. I have always enjoyed our chats, and I am very glad I got the opportunity to meet you like this and every other opportunity we've met in the past. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It's so good to actually reach out to other people
Yeah.
with similar mindsets. It's good to being able to just have discussions about really anything.
Yeah. And I have enjoyed that as time has gone on. Yeah. Sometimes off the gardens, yes. But what I will say this, and this is how I'm going to wrap this particular episode up, because I do know you do have kids and lives and farms and books, and
Yes.
like I said, but seriously, what I mentioned at the very beginning of this episode, let your husband negotiate for you. I'm
Oh, he
serious.
would. I know
I
he
know.
would.
Yeah. Right. I know. I know he that I bring it up like that because you will not do it otherwise. I'm bringing this up. You're gonna bring it up to him, let him, and just legit have that conversation with him. He would love that for a lot of reasons. Because again, my opinion, I mean, for what it's worth, you deserve more. Maybe. Okay. So when's Fight 4? When do you plan on doing Fight 4? If the stars align, when are you going to do Fight 4?
I just have it set for this year. I don't really have exact dates yet. It's
Do you
still
think
in process.
So first half, second half, final half?
Probably second half.
Okay. So I'll make you a little deal. When I'm on the road, right? When I'm on the road and I have this a little bit more nailed down and you're ready to release that book, can I come to your farm and bring ice cream and booze and we can actually eat ice cream and booze on the air and just chat?
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And heck, if your husband wants to join in on the chat, he's more than welcome to too. I'm sure. I don't know if he knows I exist or not, but if he does know I exist, I'm sure he'd like to meet. And if not, I'd like to meet him. He sounds like a really cool cat.
I can imagine y'all having very interesting conversations.
Yeah.
Because he was infantry, so he definitely has a different perspective of what military is. Because
Yeah.
but he does help with my books too. So he helps support me in everything I've done, my career, everything else. So we help support each other. That's why I'm saying I know exactly. He would love to, help me in any way.
Yes, he would, and that's why I'm telling you to put it in his attention, because if he did that, right? I'm just saying you work too hard, life's too short, and if anyone and based on just this chat, yeah, exactly. Go check out her books. She has some really cool stories. She really, really does. And yeah, and again, it's real. As you can see, why I enjoy having Betsy on the show is when she does come, she's as real as it gets. So, yeah, mostly. So,
yeah, I try to be nice.
Well, I must be doing something right because you came back like you came back like 3 times. I must have done something right.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to say this publicly. I'm so sorry for yesterday.
I was going to try to not bring that up. I was like, yeah, but
no.
yesterday.
So straight up. So folks, I'm getting back in the swing of things. I confused. So the chat I was supposed to do tonight, I thought was yesterday. And my chat with her, I thought was going to be today. And I switched the 2 dates around. And then I wake up, I'm looking at my other stuff I'm doing, and I see I've been stood up. I'm like, oh no. I looked at the dates, like I fuss up. And that's the other thing, folks. This is the other thing you gotta learn, like learn in life. Own your shit. That one was on me, and it was completely on me. And I'm not afraid to admit it. I apologize privately. I'm doing it publicly. So I must have done something right, because I get the feeling that you gave me a pass there. You wouldn't have given a lot of other people. So
Well, I do appreciate our conversations.
Yeah. So,
So
and again, shit happens, and it was my bad. So it was my bad, and I definitely felt bad on. I did feel terrible. You have no idea how terrible I felt when I first saw that
good.
message. Tears in my eyes. Yes, but I did want to bring you back before, because the show is going to evolve into its next iteration, and when it does, I'd like to have you back, but it will be in person. So the last thing we'll talk, and then we'll plug your stuff. I made a promise myself, all the people I've met on this show, I kind of want to meet you all in person. It's kind of like a personal little promise to myself. I'm going to do some crazy shit in the next 2 years, but it's yeah. It's still winter break. There are no days on the ends. Yeah, maybe. But I will say, like, when I do come, you have to tell me what's your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Mint chocolate chip.
Done. We'll do a mint chocolate chip and Bailey's. Sound like a plan?
Oh yes. Oh, yes.
It's like, yes.
Yes.
Oh, and also, guys, at some point I gotta get a hold of you, whether it's through Facebook or through what's better for you, Facebook or Discord. I gotta get you to come back on the show before that wraps up in this current format. But oh yes, it's fantastic. Mint and Bailey's is fan freaking tastic together. All right, so I guess so. Do you want to promote your first book or your most recent release? Like, how do you want to do this?
Probably be the first.
Okay, so hold on. Let's because I'm a trained professional. They gave me an award for this, Betsy. They gave me an award for this.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure. No pressure. I'm trying to find it actually at this point. So I did find you. So I did find the book. Give me a second here. So why don't you tell people about it real quick while I get ready to put this up?
All right. Well, Fight is book one in the Fight series. It is a short book. It's written under 100 pages. It is a fictional, realistic story of veterans that are trying to return home. It jumps around, but that's to give a more personal perspective to the readers on each character has their own story, has their own perspective, has their own experience in the military alone. And I think it just makes it more emotional. It will make you probably cry. It'll probably make you angry. It'll probably make you happy. I don't know. It makes me cry, and I know what happens, and that's good or bad. I don't know, but I've heard some amazing testimonials that it will definitely hit home for many people, whether you've served in the military or not. It is
all right. So did I interrupt there?
Nope. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I was going to ask is, do you have a regular web page that people can find you at?
I do currently at www.betsyrossauthor.com.
Folks, if you like the first book, you can go to her webpage, betsyrossauthor.com, and you can tell her why it's awesome and why it's real and why it connects to you. Because that's ultimately what good stories do. And sometimes the real ones are the best ones. Actually, almost always the real ones are the best ones. But the fictional ones are good too.
Yes.
So, Miss Betsy, once again, thank you for everything you've done for coming on the show, and thank you for being an amazing person. And I'm glad we've met.
Ditto.
Yeah. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, these last 96 episodes for sure to go. I might be, again, like I've said in other shows, it might be 1005, it might be 1013, but eventually, when I get to it, when I'm ready to go, I will be on the road, and the show will go in a completely different direction. But for sure, there's 96 more episodes, so I'm trying to get everybody important on. So, and if you need advertising for your books, your services, and things like that, I do videos, audios, words, and pictures. You can check that out right now. I also can produce your shows and things of that nature as well. So you can definitely check me out there. And that will do it. tomorrow is going to be a double header. I'm bringing back a guest from way in the beginning of the show tomorrow, which is going to be fun. And then in the evening, I have Joe Compton. I'm not going to name the guest. It's one of my favorite of the first 100 episodes. So definitely check that out. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I will see you guys next time.